In this section, we will have a look at the new debug window. It's a great thing. It combines the probe watch window and the breakpoint manager. Let's look into it. So we already opened LabVIEW 2025 Q3. We prepared a small demo project here to demonstrate the new debug window. So let's open this VI and navigate to the block diagram. And first thing is we can press Ctrl D to open up the debug window. This is already a big benefit. In the past it happened very often that we probably lost the probe watch window and it was hard to find it when a lot of windows were open. So that makes it very easy. We can just press Ctrl D to bring back the debug window to the front. So let's create some probes and some breakpoints. We could do a right click here on this arrow wire and add a breakpoint. You see it automatically gets added down here in the debug window. We can add another breakpoint here at the end, for example, right click on the arrow wire, add breakpoint, and we see another breakpoint coming up in our debug window. So when we run our VI, it will automatically pause at this specific location so that we can do further debugging. Let's also create a probe to see the live value of a wire. We can, for example, add one here, right click on the output of the multiplication, add probe, and let's add another probe here for this string, right click, add probe. You see down here, it gets added to our debug window. So this is actually very comfortable that now breakpoints and also probes can be managed within the same debug window. Another nice benefit is that we can rename the breakpoints and also the probes to make it easier to identify them. So we have the numbers, we can identify it by the number. We can also do a double click on the breakpoints and on the probes to identify them. And to rename them, we can do a simple right click here and choose rename. So we could call that, for example, break after file open. And we could also rename the second one here, right click, rename, and this is break before file close. Yeah? So that's pretty handy and it makes it a lot easier to identify the breakpoints and the probes in our code when we are debugging. So for a good overview, let's also rename the probes. So the probe 8, for example, could be string file output, and this probe here could be the numeric result. So perfect. Yeah? By double clicking we can also easily identify them. Let's look through the context menu again together. Right click either on a probe or on a breakpoint gives us the option to highlight the wire, so that would be like double clicking. You can also open the probe in a separate window, so you get a small additional window that you can arrange as you want to see the value then when you execute the block diagram. We can remove the probe or the breakpoint, we can copy the actual data, we can export the data to the clipboard, and as we already did, we can rename the probe or the breakpoint. And what we can also do is we can combine a probe and a breakpoint. Yeah? So this probe could actually also be a breakpoint if we click here on add breakpoint. It would be visualized like that. So in general, the yellow icon represents the probe, the red dot represents the breakpoint, and the yellow dot surrounded with a red circle represents it's a combination of a probe and a breakpoint. So we defined our probes and our breakpoints, and now let's execute the VI together. Click on Run or Ctrl R to execute the VI. You see that it immediately gets paused as it hits here the first breakpoint, which is break after file open, and now we could go on with single stepping and the other debugging tools that we know. We see that the probes, string file output and numeric result are not yet executed, which makes sense as we stop the VI before we entered the for loop. Now we could do next step and step into the for loop, and then the VIs get executed step by step until we reach our probe. And now you see that the numeric result probe got updated, And now if we continue executing our VI, we also see that now the next probe is also updated. And we also see the live value of the probe here on the wire, which also makes debugging a lot easier. We can continue again, so the loop restarts. We will not do that till the end now as it's multiple iterations. So we can just finish the for loop. After the for loop is finished, we see that we do a pause again because we hit here the next breakpoint, which is the break before close. So we can do further debugging and then finish our VI. There are some settings that we can adjust here for our probes and breakpoints. For example, let's choose the string file output probe here and click on the small gear icon here. So we can either hide the probe display. This could probably make sense if we have separate small windows for each probes. Then there is the option to keep window on top. I guess it would always make sense to keep it on top to not lose the window. And there is another option that we can toggle, which is show values on wires. We saw that previously, the small blue label that popped up when executing the VI that showed us the live value of the wire. We can either enable or disable that with this selection. There are additional settings that we can choose for our probes. As we saw previously, we just used the default probe that shows the live value that is actually present on the wire. By selecting a probe, you can click here on this gauge icon here, and you can change actually the type of the probe. You probably are aware of the history probe, for example, which is pretty nice. It gives you all the values that occurred on this wire since the VI was started. That's actually pretty nice. So we can restart the VI here to have a look, and let's execute the for loop a few times here. And you see here now in the probe display that we get all the previous wires and the latest wire. So that's the probe with history. That's pretty handy. And there are a lot of other types that you can experiment with. For example, there is toggling the execution highlighting, which enables here the light bulb to execute the code slower. You can either enable this or disable this. For example, for code segments that are time related, you should probably switch it off. And for other stuff where you are just doing algorithms, you can probably switch it on to see what is going on your wires. Another great feature for probes is that you can actually make them conditional. So let's select the numeric result probe and click here on the gauge icon again, and you can select here conditional. So we have some options here. If we switch to condition, we can make it equal to, greater than, or less than, for example. So with that approach, we could define that if the random number in this case, for example, is bigger than 0.6, then we could break and pause our code to do further debugging. That's actually pretty handy. You could also do that for strings as well and make it conditional and check if the string contains specific data, and then based on that you will break your code to pause it to do further debugging. I hope you like the debug window as much as I do. I think it's a great opportunity to combine these probes and the breakpoints. It just makes our debugging life a lot easier. You will find this VI that I used for demonstration also below the video, and you can download it and try things out. Congratulations, you finished this mini course. I hope you had fun and learned a few new things, and it would be great if you could share this training on LinkedIn. This helps us to reach more people and produce additional content. Thanks a lot, see you next time.